and welcome to the only podcast making an obstacle course in a pasture out of bidets, or as we call it in Star Wars, navigating an asteroid field. I'm Luke.
I'm Max.
I'm Matt.
And this is Force for Thought. All right, hello and welcome. Today we are here to talk about The Mandalorian and Grogu in our official capacity. This is a full review. 2 weeks ago, we talked about our out-of-theater reactions. If you weren't here for that, just to sum up, I was cool on my out-of-theater reaction. I was disappointed coming out of the theater. It did not live up to my expectations. Max and Matt were very high on it. Have your overall vibes on the matter changed in the last 2 weeks? Max?
I would say no. I still like the movie a lot. So are we just doing real quick high level thoughts?
Real quick, yeah.
Can I monologue for a minute? Real quick, I'm still high on it. Overall, I rank it a 7 out of 10, and I'm excited to get more into it.
Okay, write down your monologue, because I'm sure it'll come up, because I do intend to go scene by scene, which is what we were doing for the Mandalorian show, which was super easy, because I had Disney Plus pulled up, and I would go scene by scene. I saw this movie twice, and I was able to write it out scene by scene, which I think is evident of one of my flaws I find in the movie, but we'll get to it. Matt, what are your high-level thoughts relative to 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I still give it a 7 as well. But just to differentiate Max and I's opinion on this movie, this is my least favorite Star Wars movie. I think it was a lot of fun. I think it's kind of ultimately a nothing burger. But I have deeper opinions on it, not as a movie itself, but on the context that goes around it. So I'm pretty much still the same on it.
All right, so we can get into the nitty gritty, which is what I wanted to do 2 weeks ago, but it was just too fresh and it wasn't realistic to do it. But the movie starts out with a board meeting, intimidation racket scheme between an Imperial remnant officer and some people. We don't really learn more. We get the vibe that the Empire is treating these people poorly and that this man is still in the Empire. Mando shows up, kills the guy. Grogu has some good action sequences. I mean, the whole sequence in general, fantastic action. The AT, I believe, is what the writing AT is called, but I don't remember. Maybe ATART, Advanced Recon. Don't quote me on it. They ride the speeder walker mech thing down the snowy hill, and it looks awesome. They go into the big AT-ATs, blow them up. Great action sequence. Great start to a movie, but in terms of relevance to the rest of the movie, I found it lacking. We'll talk about the twins. I thought that there was going to be a larger Imperial remnant presence in this movie, and there was not. And that retroactively makes me like this opening sequence less, because one of the broad reasons that I don't care for this movie very much is that it feels like there were no stakes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It felt like there were no stakes and no personal journey. It felt like there was nothing. And if they even just had like a tie it back full circle moment at the end where these people that were in the boardroom now get to live without the Empire, and it's like that would at least tie some semblance of story connecting the actions of the movie to the setup of the movie. And we never get anything like it. And I find that bothersome. Matt, I'll start with you. What did you think of this opening sequence? These first, 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes?
Yeah, the first actual scene of the movie when we have this warlord Imperial remnant, I did not love it. I know everyone was pretty high off the first 15 minutes when they saw it in pre-previews. I just thought we were jumping into this with kind of McClunky writing, and I didn't love the set. It does get better. I like the overall 15-minute action set piece. I think it's a great way to start the movie. But the literal first 2 minutes, I did not love. Again, I think the writing kind of fell flat for me. Ultimately, we get some amazing Mandalorian action. I understand we're setting this up with a villain. But yeah, I didn't love the first 15 minutes. I think it was fun to see the AT-AT scene, and I think again this is Mandalorian, the TV show, done on a bigger and more grandiose budget, right? We're not seeing things like these massive AT-ATs. You know, we see an AT-ST in the show, in episode 4 of season 1, but like I think ultimately it does action really well, and it knows what it's trying to do in the first 15 minutes to really set the show or the movie up. But I agree, Luke, that it doesn't really come back around to the fact that Mando says, you know, I'll take out everybody in your deck of cards, and then basically stops for a while with the Imperial Remnant. But he does go after coin then, is the whole thing, right? Like inadvertently goes after coin. So that's just the overarching story, I think, is set there. The Hutts just take the precedence because that is who has the information to coin, I think.
Max, what do you think of this opening sequence?
I thought it was a perfect opening sequence. It was exactly what I wanted. It was exciting. It was exhilarating. And I think it perfectly set the tone. I completely understand the criticism that the movie pivots halfway through and it shifts from stopping the Imperial Remnant to dealing with the Hutts. And I think that's a fair criticism. But as far as an intro to this movie, the first 15 minutes, I was pleased as hell. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted to see. And it was action-packed. Grogu was adorable. It was exactly what we were. It was the perfect carryover from the TV show to the big screen. It was everything that you expected and wanted, but scaled up, looked better, higher stakes. Like it was perfect. And for me personally, because I'm a big helmet guy, I forgot to talk about this the first time we had a reaction to it, but we found out that snowtrooper, Imperial Remnant snowtrooper, is the same snowtroopers that we see like on Hoth. They just don't have their leather up. I thought it was a completely different helmet. And then you see him doing like a suit up scene in the back of the AT-AT, and I see one guy just like kind of like drape it back on.
The Zam
and I
Wessel,
was like so yeah, I was so satisfied by that. I was like, oh my God, that's just what they look like behind the white leather. So,
Max,
I don't know. That part gave me a good tickle as well.
It's a great call.
I love this opening sequence.
That is a great call, and I could talk for a while about that because as Star Wars goes on, they're going to continue to try to reinvent the wheel with a new trooper design for merchandising purposes, if nothing else. But even that's a vain way to look at it. Even just for the cool factor of a new Star Wars movie, new troop design, I worry that they're going to start getting more and more outlandish. Enoch from Ahsoka really toes the line. It works for me, doesn't work for other people, and I kind of get it. That's more out there. And the night, are they called night troopers? The zombie troopers in Ahsoka? I don't remember. But them in general. And I worry that like as time goes on, you have to get more and more creative with it. This was a perfect. Like it just never occurred to me that this is what snow troopers look like without that snow cover. And it looked awesome. It fit in universe. It fits story wise that some of them are like their armor is just deteriorating because the Empire is now a remnant and their equipment is aging and not being replaced. I loved the look of that, the in universe implications and the out of universe implications. That was a fantastic part of this movie. That being said,
a very small part.
It's minor, but
I absolutely loved it. And I feel like the thing that bothers me is I feel like the difference in how people look at this is just the expectations that they had going in. Because I feel like a lot of people don't really have anything negative to say about it. They just don't have a whole lot positive to say about it. Because all the things that I'm saying is like, oh, yeah, it was just kind of a cash grab. Like, clearly they're just trying to sell more toys because, you know, that's why there weren't any humans in it or anything like that. And I'm just like, is that wrong? You know what I mean? Like, I don't disagree with that, but I'm like, I don't care.
That's
because
what Star Wars
as soon as I saw
is.
all of the toys that they were releasing, I was like, I want all of those. Like they're doing a super battle droid and a battle droid version of the Hutts droids, and they looked awesome. Embo looked awesome. The Imperial Remnant Snowtrooper, and it comes with 2 different heads because you can go between the classic Snowtrooper design or the Remnant design without the little leather mask. Yeah, and it's like a bunch of things like that. And I was like, damn, for as much as like this isn't my favorite Star Wars movie, but I do want every single toy to come out of it. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
I agree. I think that's what Star Wars is, right? At its core, I mean, like when you're looking at the original trilogy, everything was so tactile that you want to play with that, and you're able to. And they continue that in the prequels, and that's what made George Lucas all of his money, right? And that's just the bread and butter, and that's, it's exciting stuff to be able to have.
There's almost like a correlation
There's-
between least favorite Star Wars movie and best toy line. Attack of the Clones isn't necessarily my least favorite. It's probably tied with The Rise of Skywalker before this month, but can't deny that Attack of the Clones has the best toy line of at least the first 11 films, and all the shows. All of Star Wars, Attack of the Clones has the best toys. I'll die on that hill.
That is interesting. I'm currently looking at my list and seeing like, oh, how would I rank these in terms of toys?
They have great.
Yeah.
We should do that for another episode. That would be really fun.
We can, but I mean, just the alien humanoids and the alien creatures and the ships. It's not close. I digress. We then go to Adelphi, a planet we've seen in The Mandalorian, and we have a Top Gun intro scene. I don't dislike that, and it set the tone. It puts Top Gun in your mind, right? Like when you guys watched that, were you thinking Top Gun?
I got to be honest, I've never seen Top Gun or Maverick.
I was not thinking Top Gun just because I don't think, honestly, Star Wars has a great cloaking device for me where when I see Star Wars, I just see Star Wars. It doesn't matter any sort of other influence, to be honest.
I typically
They could do a direct scene from The Godfather, and I'd be like, that's a brand new thing I'm seeing for the first time.
I didn't dislike it.
It did stick out to me because it was like a weird thing where it just kind of like settled on me. Where after like 30 seconds, I was like, oh, this is actually just an intro because this isn't a TV show anymore. But then I was like, is that normal? Do movies do this anymore?
Not many.
Because I was like, I feel like I'm watching like a James Bond movie from like the 60s or 70s where you have like the opening action and then you have like a really long intro scene with trippy art and music from a famous singer.
That wasn't unique to the 60s and 70s James Bonds. I do believe that was all 26 of them, or however many there are.
Well, I've lost track now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is true. I guess I don't know why I placed it as being a more retro thing. But I feel like it was more common in the 60s and 70s for other movies outside of James Bond. James Bond still does that. But do other movies do that?
No,
Have I just not been paying attention lately?
No, I mean, just
Because I've also noticed it with Disney movies. Like if you watch like 101 Dalmatians, the original like animated movie, how like the first 10 minutes of the film are the credits. And it's like, oh yeah, back in the day, they used to put the credits in the front of the movie instead of the end. It's a weird thing.
yeah, I don't know that much about it, but I remember, I don't know, watching a YouTube video about it or something, and the boomer actors of the day threw a big ol' fit when they moved credits to the end because no one was watching them anymore. And it's like, wow, that's fair, but also no one wants to watch these, so I see both points.
Correct. Both sides are valid.
Or just be like Mando and Grogu and have 5 people in it. Have Martin Scorsese be the 5th person in your movie.
Yeah, just get all
It
your
is
credits through
hilarious
in
that
2
he was
minutes.
like one of the first names on the screen.
All right, so then we meet Colonel Ward, who is I have no feelings one way or the other for her. But the thing that I want to talk about with this sequence is she gives him a Razor Crest. Why? I was not mad that they were bringing back the Razor Crest. We saw it in the trailer, but and we talked about how, you know, Mando is a bounty hunter and he like lives in his car and it's not realistic to live in the N1 Starfighter. He has a house.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in his house. And there was not a single scene where he needed to have a Razor Crest. I honestly think that they backwards solved the problem of needing an action sequence with Rada the Hutt in the belly of a ship doing action without having to move. And so they just reinvented the Razor Crest and gave him another Razor Crest. I do not like the reintroduction of the Razor Crest in this movie because it felt so unnecessary. Like, it's not necessarily a plot, like a character moment to that he lost the Razor Crest and got the N1 Starfighter, but it was progress nonetheless, and I hate to see it undone. Like, people complain that they brought Grogu back, and I see that, but also the story would kind of suck without Grogu, and I really like him. I did really like the Razor Crest. I also really like the N1 Starfighter. So you got to really convince me that there's a good reason to bring back the Razor Crest so unceremoniously, and they did not.
I wouldn't say that was that unceremoniously. I would say they brought it back as ceremoniously as they got rid of it. Because, like, yes, like you said, getting rid of the Razor Crest was an emotional beat for Mandalorian in the show, but it wasn't like the crux of the show, like Grogu leaving at the end of season 2 was. So I don't mind that they brought it back. Yes, it felt kind of like the people behind the movie were just like, we kind of messed up by getting rid of that, didn't we? Like, yeah, that became pretty iconic pretty quick, actually. We didn't think it was going to be that big, but it did. So they were like, all right, we'll bring it back. But it doesn't bother me at all. It makes sense. The guy's a bounty hunter. I mean, the opening scene, he brings back, or he was supposed to bring back the Colonel, but he shot him down.
No, he was in a U-wing.
And then
Zeb has a U-wing.
Yeah, Zeb was there in a U-wing. So it's like, are you going to just keep using their ships, or are you going to have your own?
He keeps using
and
Zeb.
They're already paying him. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. He's a bounty hunter. We've talked about how unpractical the N1 is.
Matt, you can cut that and replace, because Max, you are right. It was not unceremonious. It was very ceremonious. It was unnecessary is the word I should have used. And then they also made a lot of comments about how it's stock. And at the beginning, it was almost like Batman talking about how his Batwing has no autopilot in The Dark Knight Rises. Or it's like, something's going to come up here at the end, I bet. And then a little bit later, he's like, remember, it's a stock unit. And then it's just like, okay. That was the end of it.
No, they override stuff.
They make the modifications to it.
Yeah, they override to get out of the to jump to hyperspace at the end, right? With Rod of the Hutt. Not at the end, but they say to bypass something, and that's when Grogu is hitting all the buttons and stuff, right? Or something. They bypass.
When?
They bypass
Because
like the.
They also don't take the Razor Crest to the third act.
No, it's in the second act when they're
Right.
trying to jump to hyperspace. He does bypass something.
Does he?
And all the red lights are going off. Yes, to jump into hyperspace. I think it's when Rada is on the ship.
And then they get back, because then they get back to Navarro and they make the adjustments. And then you're right. Now that I think about it, nothing came of that, did it?
No, and it's not like they just needed an excuse to go to Navarro to make adjustments, because as we've seen from 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, every 45 minutes this man needs to land and make adjustments to his Razor Crest.
He's got OCD. What are you going to do about it, Luke?
All right, so Colonel Ward sends Mando and Grogu to Nal Hutta to meet the twins for a job returning their nephew. And this is the first time I noticed the music being exceptional when they arrive on Nal Hutta, which is another thing I'm really going to harp on, because I said I didn't really notice it 2 weeks ago, and I can't believe I didn't notice it, because it's not just good. It's not just good for Star Wars. It's elite Star Wars music. It is an incredible soundtrack. And I am very sorry for misleading anyone in my out of theater reaction. I've been listening to it a lot these last 2 weeks. It's one of my favorites because, like, I love the episode 8 and episode 9 soundtrack, but like the best parts are March of the Resistance, Rey's theme, Kylo Ren's theme, which are all just episode 7 songs. And same with episode 5 and 6 to an extent. Like, it's usually the first one in the trilogy that introduces all the themes and the great songs. Not so much with the prequels. Episodes 2 and 3 had their own songs that were all awesome. But Mandalorian and Grogu, at the same level as Solo, well above Rogue One in terms of movie scores.
Yeah, I agree. I have no notes. I think Ludwig Göransson is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and then just beyond Star Wars, he's just like the best. He's the best right now working in the industry, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that Star Wars has been doing lately that they just do not mess up with. One of them is Darth Vader. Luke, I think you talk about that one a lot. They really know how to use Darth Vader. And the other one's the music. I feel like none of those have ever fallen short.
I don't think the music is operating on the same level as Darth Vader across the franchise. I frequently think in the shows, nothing strong. I remember I really liked the music in Ahsoka. I remember feeling nothing strong about, and I really like the music in Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. But like Skeleton Crew, Kenobi, The Acolyte, Andor even. Like, I don't remember the music really blowing me away in Andor.
The Andor music is amazing. I've been listening to that soundtrack nonstop the past couple of weeks, and I'm like, oh goddamn, so good. I think but it is subtle. I will say that it is more subtle than bombastic.
I forget. I just watched a YouTube video about. I think it was a Howard Shore YouTube video about the Lord of the Rings, and he called it the practical music is the music that the characters hear in the movie, as opposed to the score music, which obviously that's got to be different. But Andor has very good practical music because like Narkina and not Narkina, the Space Miami planet,
dance when they're at the wedding.
the Niamos, yeah, and then it's reprised at the wedding and the Donnie and the funeral. A lot of good practical music, but I can't remember much about the score of it. But maybe I'll rewatch it and be blown away. I just rewatched it. I'm comfortable with my take on this. Mandalorian and Grogu,
I don't
fantastic
think you
music.
should be though, because I'm also rewatching it right now, and I just rewatched the Gorman massacre, and the last shot of Andor driving away in that speeder as that woman is talking over the radio, and the music starts to kind of swell behind her, is, I think, one of my favorite scenes in all of Andor.
Amazing.
That's a really emotional scene, but I don't remember the music being what set me over it. I digress. We'll return to that at another time. Nal Hutta, environmentally, atmosphere, super interesting to see. I love the CG across the movie looks great, but the art design of this whole planet, the huts sliding through their little holes and stuff, super cool. Then when it like
Gross
opens the
as
door and you see the twins, and the music cuts to the twins theme or whatever that song is. That's when it really started blowing me away. And I really like the twins. Did they speak Basic in the Book of Boba Fett? I meant to rewatch it for this, but I don't remember because it was like jarring. I don't know if it was the sound mixing was on working extra hard or what, but when the boy twin started talking, his voice super cool and menacing. I loved every time he was talking.
I don't know if they spoke both, but I feel very confident that they spoke Huttese.
I agree that
That
they spoke
was
Huttese.
a safe bet.
So Mando and Grogu go to Shikari. And if you're starting to be surprised that I'm able to recount this movie scene by scene, it's because there's no other characters. It's just Mandalorian and Grogu going from one thing to the next. Like, if I'm trying to do this with The Rise of Skywalker, which I don't know why I picked that one, but they're doing things, then you cut to Kylo Ren and the First Order, and they're doing other things at the same time, and then it cuts to, like, maybe Poe and Finn have a scene, and then maybe back to Rey doing something with Leia, and it's like, this is just Mandalorian and Grogu going from one scene to the next, and it feels very choppy. I don't care for the pacing of
Very
in that regard.
sequential.
And Solo, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because Solo does the same thing. I think Han is in every scene in Solo, but there's a lot of other characters in Solo that make it feel less unnatural. And this movie has, it's just the main character going through every scene, and there's no side characters, and that makes it really difficult.
Yeah, they weren't kidding when it's Mandalorian and Grogu.
Aptly named movie.
It was in the title. That's the whole thing. This movie was exactly what they said it was going to be.
All right. So we go to Shikari. Another great soundtrack moment. We meet Hugo Durant, who is apparently canonically related to Rio Durant, Jon Favreau's Ardinian character from Solo, A Star Wars Story, with the same last name. And
Did not realize that.
that
was his name, and he was credited. Is that his full name?
Hugo, last name Durant, yeah. I don't think he's last named in either movie, but I believe they're credited as last name, same name, both times. I liked this scene. I could have done with only one of them, because we then go back and do that scene again in a couple minutes. Didn't think that was that necessary. They probably could have wrote that a little bit cleaner, but not the end of the world. But when stuff like this keeps compiling, it gets to me. So Din Djarin and and Grogu go to meet Rada, and you see him in his cell, and he introduces himself, Dawana Wanga. This is one of the moments where I feel like I'm too in the weeds, where no one cares. That bothered me, and I had to actively stop myself from being bothered. That felt like too much fan service, because that's what Bib Fortuna says to Luke Skywalker. That's how he introduces himself in Return of the Jedi, and it just sounded so forced and unnatural, and I don't know why. And I I can chill about that one. I recognize that is not a big deal.
I can chill about that one.
I'm glad that you can, because a lot of these, I'm like, I'm completely opposite as you. I'm just like, yeah, that was awesome. Like, oh, I don't know, they brought the Razor Crest back. I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. The Dewanawanga callback, that's awesome. That was a great callback. That was perfect.
It makes it seem like they're just trying too hard to call stuff back, and they don't need to be like that. It's, I don't know. Sometimes it's unforced, sometimes it's forced, and sometimes I like it forced, and sometimes I don't. I don't know.
I don't think that is forced though. That feels very natural. Where it's like,
That's how you greet someone.
they're not doing it because they're saying like, well, why would he do that? The answer is like, well, why not? Like, of course that's what he would say. That's a Huttese greeting.
This was a very good scene, also, where the Rada's character, it was not a compelling character like throughout the movie with a good arc, but it was a compelling start place for a character and a surprising one. And I really liked that whole element of he's living in Jabba's shadow and he doesn't want to be, yada yada. We talked about that at length last time, but I like Rada, especially in the first half when he's in the movie. We then.
It's interesting that I feel like you and I are having very opposite takes, because that was the only part where I was like, I don't know about that part.
Really?
Because there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue in the entire movie, but this was like some of the most of it, and it was very exposition heavy. And he just kind of kept repeating himself over and over that he's not his father's son and he wants to be different. It's like, all right, yeah, we get that. But I don't know.
I liked it because it's the first one, so you got to choose when you want to get mad about it. If you're mad that it keeps coming up, you can't be mad at the first one because it had only come up once at this point.
Yes, that's okay. That's fair. I agree with that. But then you have to admit that the intro to this movie was also badass, and that you have no problem with it until they don't come back to it in the second half of the film.
Well, when am I going to talk about it? You can't talk about the absence of something unless you got to be talking about it when you're talking about it.
Well, all right, fine. Just skip forward. I'll bring it up again later.
When Grogu,
I'll tell you. I'll cue Matt for the edit for when he can put it in.
I wish Grogu had snuck in a little bit sooner into this scene because it was really intense that, like, you know, Jabba eats Grogu-sized people and things pretty regularly, and that was a very tense moment and very sincere, and immediately got me on Rada's side when he was nice to Grogu. But I feel like it was a little bit too long after he had started saying, no, I'm chill. And also maybe that was the tone of the movie that made me think that Grogu wasn't about to get eaten. But I liked Grogu sneaking in also to really sell us on Rada. We then get what's that alien? The CC-10 alien. Ithorian, not Ithorian. Itachi. And Lord Janu. Great fight sequence. Matt, you got any notes on this sequence? I know you're a big... Oh, no, Max is our big Itachi fan.
I'm just a big CC-10 fan. is the thing.
I like Itachi's quite a bit. Yeah.
No notes on my end. Sorry, I feel like I talk too much throughout the episodes, and then we go so long because of me. So I'm holding off some reservations. But no crazy notes thus far. Again, I think, like, just to piggyback on the stuff that you guys are saying, so I can hear myself talk when I re-listen to this, is I think that I think the first scene sets it up for a great fun action ride, and I think it pays it off. And I think the twins don't speak basic in Book of Boba Fett, and I thought it was a fun scene. I think I liked it. I think, to be honest, I almost feel like that's where the movie should have started, because I think the thing is I know you start off with a banger, but when you look at, I think, a lot of fun movies from where this is trying to take from, you start with this air of mystery, much like in Return of the Jedi. Like, if this was Jedi, you would start the scene and you would start the movie when he's at the Hutt's palace. That's a controversial take, I think, and it doesn't make any sense necessarily with the way the movie then folds out. But to me, that's like the scene that you start with. To be honest, that feels more like Star Wars versus every other movie. We're more like an MCU movie where you're like, how do we jump out the gate with something you haven't seen before? But with that being said, Max, like you said, it is a jump to from the small screen to the big screen. But I do appreciate, I think, taking a movie taking its time and earning those action sequences a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, instead of starting with a sequence that doesn't play into the movie later, I think you're right that they could have done that. If this sounds like really like whatever, I don't mean it this way, but like if you were trying to write a better movie, like sure, maybe that's a good place to start. But I mean, I do think that there was a reason that it was very sequential and easy to follow, and it's because this was a movie that was made to be watched by parents with their 8-year-old children.
It is definitely an easy watch, with the exception of the
Yeah.
dragon snake scene.
But wouldn't you say that the original trilogy is also the same thing?
Yes, with less
With
emphasis
like
on the parents.
Well, I think there was something about earning those action moments that I would have preferred. And I think starting with an air of mystery and really starting with the Huts would have been a banger entrance. And then you kind of go into this, like, I mean, in Hoth, right? Hoth is an amazing sequence in Empire Strikes Back because you get a lot of this time and with Luke Skywalker on the Tauntaun and searching, and then you kind of get this action moment. And that feels to me where, like, if in a traditional Star Wars movie, you start with like him going down these long alleyways and you're setting up the scenes for, these robots are going to come, these droids are going to come to life later on. And they're like massive 15 feet tall droids and whatnot. Anyway, that's no other comments right now for me.
The Lord Janu fight sequence and Salt conversation. Another uncharacteristically dialogue-heavy scene for this movie. And I liked it, but similar to my feelings on the first imp that they take out, it doesn't really come back. And this is just my first idea, and it's certainly not the best idea, but something along the lines of like seeing the citizens of Shikari enjoying salt now that Lord Janu is gone and they're not rationing it anymore. Like something to make the actions of the movie feel purposeful, or something like, the Imperial Remnant was at X power level and now they're at X -5 or something. It just felt like we didn't do anything in this movie. We then sneak in to get rid of the hut when
I don't know. I think that stuff was there though, just because you didn't see it. But I do want to say that scene is another standout because I think that is a very badass moment. And I also really I appreciate the lore that they established about this planet having a salt rarity and salt being like a currency because it's very rare and valuable. And then he gives him that little block of salt on his way out and he just drops it in that guy's drink. I know I talked about that during the reaction episode, but I really want to emphasize that is such a badass power move right there. He ruined his drink as well as threw away all that money. That is such a great moment.
I don't disagree. Mando and Grogu then sneak in to get Rada when negotiations fail, and they get got. As a nice sequence of Grogu showing his value as small. Mando, I'm sure he could have gotten in some other way, but Grogu played an important role in sneaking in to get Rada there.
He's a part of the team. He's not just a shadow.
He is not. We then get the cage fight. Probably the best action sequence of the movie, right? I think it's definitely my favorite.
Probably some of the best non-lightsaber action sequence in all of Star Wars.
It might be.
I think we need to revisit that conversation now.
It might be. I really like the Rada fight scene. Seeing him move, seeing him hit with his tail, like every little thing just tickled me just the right way. And then the Djarik match, that was cool, and I like seeing all those creatures. Again, that gave me the same feeling as Dewana Wanga, where you're evoking the original trilogy unnaturally, I thought. But it was cool enough this time that it bothered me less than Dewana Wanga.
I did not feel like it was like forced in an unnatural way. I definitely understood what they were doing in the moment, but it felt natural enough because I feel like we'd heard about fighting pits before, and now we're just seeing like the full extent of what all that includes and everything, and it's giving a little bit more lore to the Djarik game in general. I like that moment a lot, and I think one of the reasons I really like this scene too, and Mando fighting Rada as well as Mando and Rada fighting all of these creatures, is because of the superhero theory. I forget who talks about it all the time, but like the thing that people don't want to see is Superman fighting evil Superman, where they just have the exact same powers, one just a little bit stronger than the other.
Yeah.
Like the thing that's fun to see in superheroes is people with two completely different power sets going up against each other. That's why people like, Spider-Man versus Doc Ock or something like that. And that's what all of these creature fights gave us. And like every single one, it wasn't just like Mando going up against a group of stormtroopers where it's like, okay, he's going to storm the castle, tank a bunch of shots to the Beskar, and he's going to kill them. It was like, how is he going to fight this Whitewater Serpent? How does Rada fight? What are the mechanics of that? I was just watching an interview today with Dave Filoni where he said the nice thing about working on a movie is that you're not on as big of a time crunch as you are with TV shows, and they were able to sit down, him and John, and actually like go over the mechanics of that and the physics and like how would this actually work in real life. And I feel like that did translate well to the big screen, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, time well spent.
Yep, I agree. I gasped when Rada slithered across as well in the fighting pit, and the way the huts were all moving throughout the layer. I thought it was
like
amazing.
4 distinct ways to move, all of which made sense, all of which also surprised me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is just so satisfying to see. Because he would like do a barrel roll. He would use his arms to like crawl like a monkey. And it was terrifying. And it was, I don't know. I talk about it a lot with the technology in Star Wars, where very often there's just something that is completely fictitious and does not make sense at all in our real world that just makes me go, oh, yeah, that's about right. And watching everything with the huts was the equivalent. I was just like, well, yeah, that's how they move. That makes sense.
Another favorite scene of mine, Chikari is really the peak of this movie, I'm realizing as I go through it. Rada on the run, where he rips out the driver seat for that speeder and slithers on in, and then there's a chase sequence. Grogu gets in that apparently high-speed stroller and chases him. I loved all that. This is like now the third sequence of one continuous action set piece, and it's the third great part of it. Like, they really hit it out of the park on Chikari.
You see, what's funny is I was debating saving this for a force for thought, but that scene or that sequence did not follow the action that it set up, because all of those Dajaric creatures are loose in Chikari, and they just let them go. We have no idea how that played out. That planet might be completely uninhabitable now, for all we know, because as soon as they got out, and there was the trailer that was cut that made it look like, oh, Din Djarin and Grogu are tracking down this creature from the Dajaric game, and they're going to have to fight it, and that never happened. They just went right after Rada, picked him up, and left the planet. They said, you guys deal with the rest of these creatures.
The trailer did kind of imply that, because the trailer was very careful, rightfully so. A rare marketing W for Lucasfilm, but when they so purposely and intentionally omit Rada the Hutt from the trailers out of just a picture of him, because we really had no idea what capacity he was going to be. Everyone assumed he was going to be a villain. And even if he was a villain, everyone would have assumed that there would be a chase sequence against Rada. But they really saved it all for the big screen, and I super appreciate that. We then leave Chikari, to the detriment of the movie, I think. Right off the bat, one of my least favorite scenes...
Also, Chikari is just Chicago again. We can't skip that. Just it sounds like Chicago. Like it sounds like someone's trying to not say Chicago. It seems like draft one. What can we call this planet? This city? Anyway, go.
Space go. Chicago got edited the one time, but they forgot to continue.
During the read through, there was a typo, and one of them read "back on Chicago." Chicago.
Chicago.
Twigged. Back in the Razor Crest, which we talked about it on our out of theater reaction. The sequence of Rada entering the Razor Crest and being suspended in the hammock would have been cool to see. I'm not mad that I didn't see it. I get it. Maybe a behind the scenes kind of thing. You remember in Toy Story 2 when they have bloopers at the end, but they're not real bloopers because it's an animated movie. So they made these bloopers. This would be like a good opportunity for that, I digress.
I would like to see some bloopers with a fully CG Rada the
Right. Hutt. My least favorite part, second least favorite part of the movie, Rada is convincing Mando that Janu coin is the Imperial that he's looking for, and Mando's like, "How do I know you're not lying?" And Rada says, "You're a bounty hunter. You can tell when people are lying." Cut. I don't know. I don't know about that. That reminded me. That was like out of the Big Bang Theory, which I think is funny, but I know Matt hates when Sheldon's like, "Well, how do I know you're not just manipulating me into by saying I'm so smart that I would know?" And they're like, "Well, I think you're smart enough that you'd know that too." And he's like, "Ah, you're right." And it's like, bounty hunters are not notorious for reading people's lies. They catch people. I did not care for that scene. I felt like they just wanted to stop writing that scene, and so they did.
It wasn't 100% based on that, though, because they do go back to the compound and they scope it out beforehand and they find all the stormtroopers and they're like, okay, yeah, it looks like he's telling the truth.
No,
It was it was more like a, why don't we check this out before we go all the way back onto the other side of the galaxy, because we're already here.
that would have been more sophisticated writing, is saying literally that. I think. Regardless, I did not care for that scene. And then capturing coin was another great action sequence. Hogsworth behind the static TV, and he turns it off, and he's there for a jump scare. That was an appropriate jump scare. I like that one because it's not really scary like the dragon snake later. And then there was an awesome action piece with Hogsworth again. And then they get coin out. Great action from Zeb. They get coin out, get him
That
in
hallway
the
sequence was cool.
speeder, and then they ask Grogu and Rada to fire it up, and they're sleeping together. Another cute scene. And Rada and Grogu turn to each other, and they don't know how to fly. Hilarious beat. I like this sequence a lot. And then Grogu, Mando starts very overcomplicating the mission controls, and Grogu fires a missile, and Mando says like, "No, those are bad. That's why they have the protective case on it." And then Grogu flips up the other protective case and launches the next missile. Hilarious sequence. And then they fly the speeder straight into the belly of the Razor Crest. For what I can tell is the only justification for reintroducing the Razor Crest in this universe, for the Imperials to then chase into the belly of the Razor Crest, where Rada can have an action sequence and not have to move, which he looks good when he's moving, but he can only move the one or two ways, and you can't show it too many times. You got to find a way to have him be stationary and impactful. And they did, but I don't know.
There's a couple weird moments where I liked what they did with the space, because I feel like it's easy in Star Wars to have like these huge rooms where you can kind of explore in a fight scene. It came up recently when we were reviewing Maul's Shadow Lord, when they were having that fight with the Inquisitors, and it was like on that tiny place across from the whatever it was, lava lake. You know what I'm talking about. Where it's like, I like that they had that really close quarters fight moment. I don't know if you could really call it a fight, because the stormtroopers didn't really put up anything, where you just see Rada hammering on their speeder, throwing them out. I like that a lot. And they also used it to great comedic effect too. Like earlier when Mandalorian was talking to what did you say his name was now? I forget. The
Boyne, Hogsworth?
Not Enzelin. No, the guy with 4 arms.
4 arms? Oh, Rio, not Rio, his cousin, Hugo Durant.
Rio, his cousin, Hugo Durant. Like, it cuts to him in that little food truck with him, and you realize in that moment, like, oh, it's small because he's not, like, a 6 foot tall human. And so you're, like, looking up at him, and he's kind of, like, hitting his head on the ceiling the entire time. And, like, that's just, like, kind of a funny comedic beat. And then they have, like, kind of a similar thing later with Grogu in the Enzelin ship as well, where it's like, look at him. He looks huge at this thing because they're so tiny by comparison. I don't know. There was a couple moments like that where I was like, it's funny seeing these characters in cramped spaces.
That reminds me, I also want to bring up for posterity, because I am convinced that I have seen mistakes like this in theaters, and they patch it in the Disney Plus or DVD release and just try to forget all about it. During that sequence with Hugo in his food truck, he puts one of his forehands on his space panini press that is sizzling and should have burned himself. Like, I know my way around a grill, and that thing is hot, and I can.
Yeah.
It bothered me. He did it twice, and I noticed it on my second watch because I'm not mad about it, but I just want it to be known when it releases on Disney Plus, and he has a towel on his hand all of a sudden. He didn't in the theatrical release.
God, that's so funny. I'm sure we'll look back on that and be like, "Yep, Luke was right," or we'll completely forget about it. It's one of the two.
All right,
think so.
back
I
on
thought you were gonna say that there was like a Starbucks cup in the background or something.
back on Adelphi. Mando retires, and this is when I went to go to the bathroom when we watched it together, and that's not a knock on the movie. It was an emergency. I mean, I would have missed the Holdo maneuver for this pee break. I had to go, but it was nice being vindicated on my second watch that I really didn't miss much. There was a Dave Filoni cameo, and Colonel Ward said the same. I don't want to call it Chat GPT because that's too harsh, but like, she says exactly what I expect her to say, and then Mando goes home for little to no reason. I made it back in time the first time for the Rada and Grogu on the beach scene, which is the best part of this sequence, and still loved it the second time. They go.
I will admit, because I said in the lead up to this movie that the thing that's going to make or break this movie is whether or not it necessitates a theatrical release, which in hindsight, I feel like it didn't. Like, it was just a couple of good episodes of Mandalorian, in my opinion. But one thing that I kept thinking was like, for it to exceed my expectations, there needs to be some sort of huge story plot that advances the larger story of the Star Wars universe, or some sort of notable death, or some sort of
Character growth.
significant plot twist, something along those lines. And so the thing that was just in my mind for the longest time was Colonel Ward. Who is this person? Why did they get Sigourney Weaver to play like the only human in this entire movie? And so I kept thinking, like, maybe she's going to be evil, and that was going to be the callback to the Imperial Remnant. Right?
Oh God,
Like, she
that was
just trying
so
to take out her competitors.
cool.
Because
oh,
like she
that
kept
was
saying
so
a couple
cool.
things
Damn it,
too.
Max.
Like when she gave him the Razor Crest, I was kind of like, oh, she specifically said that she gave it a test run herself, so maybe that was going to come back, and like she sabotaged it or something. And then she like was saying that she didn't know who these people were, and then she was very upset when he broke his deal with the Hutts. Because he basically said, well, I got John Coin. That's what you were looking for. We didn't need to deal with the Hutts. If there was like some sort of background story of her working with the Hutts and she really needed that to fall through for their benefit or something like that.
Damn, that Max, that's
and that
blown my
didn't happen
mind. That's
again.
really cool if it would have. Damn it. I'm not even thinking about that.
Well, I'm not trying to say it to like say like, oh, this is what they should have done.
You
Or it's
did
like
it,
worse
though.
because it didn't do that. But like that was like kind of in the back of my head, because I was like, I wonder if there is going to be some sort of twist here at the end. But it doesn't. I mean, it's just a very, very straightforward movie. It is exactly what it said it was going to be, and you got exactly what they said they were going to give you. It did not exceed those expectations, but they did everything that they set out to do well enough that it certainly did not fall below my expectations either.
All right.
Damn.
It has occurred to me that when we go scene by scene through a 40-minute episode of The Mandalorian, it takes us about an hour. And in the interest of talking more about the things I like and less about the things I don't like, I will start going a little bit quicker, because most of the things I like are the first hour with Shikari.
Hey, we could also do part 1, part 2, baby. We are starved for content.
Oh, damn, that's true, too. You want to do that? Because this is a very natural spot to go to part 2. All right, let's look at my high.
As you know, it has been a long day for me, and I also am so proud of myself for not talking as much as I thought I was going to. But I'm also tired, so maybe next time I'll get really tired again.
No, this is a very appropriate spot to end part
And I
1.
do have a lot more notes as well.
So
I think doing
yeah.
the part 1, part 2 might actually be a pretty good idea.
You can cut the part that we're starved
yeah,
for
because
content,
I
because we have a lot of episode ideas
No, I know.
floating around. toys by movie.
We are going to be
cetera.
ranking the movies by toyability. That will absolutely be happening in the near future.
I
so
still
look out
want to
for
get
that.
back to our tier ranking list as well. That's yeah, we're not actually a
We
star
need
for
to do the
content.
sequels. That was the next one. That was the last one that we haven't done.
And the
I've had
TV
the
shows.
tier generator list made for that for a long time now.
Oh, but now we have to redo it because so many things have changed. It's been 2 years.
I know a lot of things have changed. Has it been 2 years since we did that? We were in person. That's insane.
I was in Columbus still.
All right. When we come back next week, we'll start talking about Mando back on Navarro and the lack of IG-11. Did you see they released an IG-11 toy?
The lack of IG-11. They did not. I did see that they released the IG-11 toy.
That's at least got to piss
They
you off.
did not need to. No, I don't care. They should release every single toy. I don't think that they need to wait for like the appropriate time to release all these toys. They should be releasing toys as soon as they get the idea and the mold made.
I generally agree, but they brought back IG-11 for no reason, and then they didn't include him for no reason, and then they released a toy for no reason. There's got to be some way to tie some of these acts together.
I don't know. I disagree. I think there was no reason to have brought IG-11 on there.
No reason other than he's there, and this is his home, and it felt unhomely, which, all right, we're talking about Navarro next week. Does anyone have any high-level thoughts for the first half of The Mandalorian and Grogu? If we're just talking first half of Mandalorian and Grogu, it was pretty good. I like that episode of The Mandalorian.
I think my only high level thoughts is, Luke, I like this. This is legitimately an aspect of you that we joke about, but I have not seen. That usually you're blinded by Star Wars. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but right. I mean, I think you admit that multiple times that you have Star Wars ranking and then you have everything else ranking, and I'm proud of you for being able to deconstruct this a bit as well. I'm not saying I fully agree with you, but I just like this side of you. I think it's a fun thing to see.
Thank you.
There was a couple episodes of The Mandalorian when we were doing our review that all of us came in on the exact same page, and that was just so refreshing.
All of season
I don't
2.
know why. It always seems like that's never the case, and I can't believe that I'm the one that has to defend this right now. But the more I do and the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, no, this movie kicks ass.
That's good. I don't want you to come around to my way of thinking, because it sucks not loving Star Wars.
I love it. I would say so far, I love this movie. If you want to put on a movie in the background and just be able to kind of turn your head every now and then and be like, oh, this part's cool, this is the best movie for that. The
best. There are no lightsabers, Maxwell. Let's be honest.
What alternative would you say is the better movie for that? Then?
All the prequels and all the sequels. If you're just looking to see cool action pieces,
those are the worst ones to put on in the background. When you're not actively watching it, you're just going to randomly turn your head and be like, oh, I wonder what part they're at. Nope, not another lightsaber fight. They're just talking about the banking clan committee again.
I will say
I do that every day. Exactly that. Turn on Star Wars. Ooh, are we at what's it called? Pataki Arena? Patraki Arena? The Geonosis Arena? No, we're back on Coruscant
Petronaki?
talking
Is there
about
any
Anakin
there?
not being a master. That's not a fun watch.
I will say,
No, it's not. And that's why it doesn't make the best one to have on in the background. I think this is going to be the best background Star Wars movie. But
I'm excited
whatever.
to see.
Yeah, I have other high-level thoughts, but I'll wait for my summary after next week, I suppose.
Jaffiel.
All right. Does anyone have any force for thought to leave us with today?
Are we doing?
Yes, I do.
All right.
And
I said, do we do a force for thought now as well, or do we wait till next week? So it feels
yeah,
like
we still got to do
We
the
can't,
force.
we can't
Alright,
just
alright.
really screw over the listener
It's our shtick.
on ending this episode.
It's just we
I
have to
can't
end
take
it
credit
like on
for this. I
cereal.
saw this.
I like to think
I'm so
everyone
sorry.
I
really
saw this
enjoys our force for
online.
thoughts. It's my favorite part.
I agree. I was thinking about doing. I wish we could make like a super compilation of them or something. Anyway, what was I saying? I can't take credit for this. I saw this online, but it absolutely blew me away because it was talking about Luke Skywalker building his green lightsaber in the deleted scene of Return of the Jedi when he's in that cave and he's tweaking with it. And we know that they made it green just because they couldn't shoot a blue lightsaber with the sky as the backdrop. It wasn't showing up or whatever. But in universe, I saw this theory that he's building his lightsaber there because that's where he got his kyber crystal, but there is no kyber crystal on Tatooine, and that's because Obi-Wan Kenobi used Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber to kill Darth Maul at the end of The Phantom Menace, and we never see it again. So Obi-Wan Kenobi would have had Qui-Gon's lightsaber, and Luke Skywalker went back to Tatooine, went through Obi-Wan's hut, found Qui-Gon's lightsaber, and made his lightsaber using Qui-Gon's green kyber crystal.
I've seen that theory before, and I quite like it.
I have never seen that theory
That
before.
rocked my socks when I heard that. I kept thinking about that forever, and I'm like, why couldn't that be true? And then the more I thought about it, I was like, why wouldn't that be true? Like, that makes too much sense. I'm like, yeah, that absolutely happened. What happened to Qui-Gon's lightsaber? Like, you don't see it in his hands when he's burned at the end of The Phantom Menace or anything.
I feel like the prequels, George Lucas didn't really understand how much everyone was interested in the unique lightsaber designs. Like, in The Phantom Menace, they kind of suck. Like, Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon's have got to be the three worst lightsaber hilt designs. And then, I mean, for main characters. And then in episode 2, they, like, didn't even try with, like, Kit Fisto, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Aayla Secura. They're, like, all the exact same. And then they have Obi-Wan and Anakin using different lightsaber hilts. Obi-Wan loses several and remakes almost identical ones. Like, I feel like if they remade the prequels, they would have a much larger emphasis on this is this person's hilt, and I would like that more. Like, I'm not mad about the lack of emphasis, but it is surprising looking back.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's very interesting, like you said, when they decide to remake the exact same lightsaber versus different ones. Because Obi-Wan's in episode 1 is very different than Obi-Wan's in episode 4. Yet the one in episode 1 he loses and he remakes an identical one.
Yeah.
But then he loses that one in episode 2 and he decides not to remake that one and opts more for an episode 4. And then I also wonder what the difference is between like episode 3 and 4, because I know that the lightsabers are different, but I'm like, are those differences in the props? Like, are those supposed to be the same lightsaber?
I believe they're supposed to be the same between episodes 3 and 4 for Obi-Wan. But another layer to the onion is when they made the Clone Wars, they had that fantastic arc with the younglings going to Ilum and like bonding with their kyber crystal, and now all this lore, and yeah, Anakin loses several, Obi-Wan loses several. They use different ones on Geonosis, and it doesn't seem to matter. Yeah,
That's blowing my mind, Max. This is my favorite Force for Thought we've ever had. I'm going hands down. I know you didn't come up with it, so I'm going to retract that statement. But I like that. I'm just a sucker for a green lightsaber, and that's crazy. And I'm also questioning how much Luke Skywalker is a better person than I am to be like, I can take this kyber crystal and build my own, or I can just take this lightsaber and use it as my own, which is what I would do.
No, you would do it just like Luke, because you got that Qui-Gon Jinn lightsaber, and you're like, damn, this is kind of boring. Yeah, I could do
that's
better
true.
than this.
Luke does have my favorite hilt in return as well.
It is overly practical to use as a weapon. I need something a little more unwieldy.
It legitimizes how cool green lightsabers are now that there's like basically one fewer. If you look at Luke's and Qui-Gon's is like the same one. Now it's just Yoda and Kit Fisto and Luke/Qui-Gon.
You know what I think about frequently, fondly, is that quote that you said one time, Luke, that people who like Qui-Gon's lightsaber as their favorite lightsaber hilt are the type of people that play D&D as a human ranger. I think that's hilarious and very accurate.
Live a little, folks. And I don't mean any slander on Qui-Gon. My love for him is well documented over the last 3 years.
We know.
He is one of my
Correct.
favorites.
No one can question your faith. Anyway.
All right. Well, let us know what you think about the first half of The Mandalorian and Grogu. Because the discourse around the first half of The Mandalorian and Grogu, like not just my own take, in general, what I've seen from everyone else, I remember hearing that when we walked out of the theater that they liked the first half. The first half was really good. I really liked the first half. Let us know what you think of the first half of Mandalorian and Grogu and lightsaber hilt and kyber crystal theory. And we'll see you next week to discuss the rest of the movie and something else random and dumb at the end. Thanks for listening. Have a good week.
See you, Sammy.